After having read and reread and sifted and tested this mass of information which came before us, I've come to the conclusion that Richard M. Nixon has, beyond a reasonable doubt, committed impeachable offenses which, in my judgment, are of such sufficient magnitude that he should be removed from office.
I'm Tom Eccleston, 75 years of age, Tatum's grandfather, and I lived through the Watergate Scandal. I was 32 when it happened, but of course when it happened, we didn't know it had happened. I was 34, 35 years old when it broke open, ending with Nixon's resignation.
It was constantly in the newspapers, television news. It was a huge story.
And it was a disappointment to know that our leaders had involved themselves with a great deal of dishonesty, more to cover up what they did wrong. The original crime, the break-in at the Watergate complex, was a crime, but it wasn't anything as serious as their attempt to cover it up by telling lie after lie after lie when it started to break. So it was disappointing. Taught a lot of us about the potential for corruption in government, and it was a very, very great example of that, and also taught us an awful lot about human nature. No, at first you didn't realize that there was as much direct involvement in the scandal by the White House. At first, we felt, that it might have been some followers of Nixon and the Republicans that got carried away with their responsibilities and maybe went too far, further maybe than Nixon and his staff would have wanted them to go. But later on, when the truth all came out, it was obvious that the White House was much more involved than anybody thought. No. When the initial break-in was not a major story. It was a story, and if you read your newspapers carefully, you had seen mention of it, but it was not a major story in the beginning. As the information started to come out, it became obvious that the White House was very involved in the cover-up. And that's why many people feel the cover-up was a bigger story than the actual break-in. Yes, we were able to watch a lot of tapes in the end because the White House had a taping system that ended up implicating the president far more than anybody would have imagined. There were a lot of different views. A lot of them were people following their own political preference. People who were Republicans and liked Nixon didn't want to believe that it was as serious as it became. And a lot of Democrats, of course, wanted it to be more than it was. And then as time went on, it became more and more clear that it in fact was a very serious amount of corruption at the highest level. For the good of the country, it was probably better that it went the way it did, because a scandal like this distracts the Congress and the whole government from doing their normal job. And had this dragged on and on with him, if he had not resigned and he fought it longer, we would not have had anybody governing the country. Everybody would have been so tied up into this scandal. It was a shocking thing in the sense that it hadn't happened before in our history. It was a good thing to avoid the whole country from being distracted. The country was better off, I believe, with the resignation. This didn't end because Woodward and Bernstein wrote books and made comments, and different people that were involved in uncovering this scandal. They wrote, they appeared on television. Because we had more knowledge. We could, we learned, everyone learned, and myself being a student of political science and history, we all learned more about our government. We learned the potential for corruption, and all of the things, the lessons that we learned did turn out to be, I think, quite valuable, and hopefully they last a long time so that people can benefit from them in the future as well.